The environment is so fundamental to our continued existence that it must transcend politics and become a central value of all members of society. A fitting quote for the topic of this video. It was written by David Suzuki, an environmental activist in Canada who is probably best known for his science show, The Nature of Things. He has been known to criticize governments for their lack of action to protect the environment. But in this quote specifically, he points out that politics alone isn't enough when it comes to the protection of it. David Suzuki's quote is more than 20 years old at this point, but it holds more truth than ever. Next to the well-known issues of climate change and pollution, we are faced with a grave loss of biodiversity. So how can we find our way out of the ongoing global mass extinction? NGOs are going to play a major role in succeeding. But what even are NGOs? The German Agency for the Environment defines NGOs as non-profit, non-governmental organizations that are mainly dedicated to the protection of nature and environment. Okay, but why do we even need them? Biodiversity is threatened by a lot of factors. Climate change, industry, and general loss of habitat endanger the survival of species, even to the point of extinction. Here are some specific numbers for you. Currently, there are 134,425 species on the Red List of Endangered Species. Of those, almost 40,000 are threatened with extinction. These numbers clearly show how grave this problem is, and that steps need to be taken to protect our biodiversity. And a lot of NGOs are working to achieve exactly that. You have probably heard of some big NGOs like the Worldwide Fund for Nature, better known as WWF, or Greenpeace before. But there are a lot more that are less well known. In Germany alone, there are 126 licensed NGOs that have the protection of nature and the environment as their goal. Worldwide, the actual number is difficult to estimate, since not all NGOs are registered, or the information is not easily accessible. But one thing is for sure, there are a lot of them. So let's have a closer look at some of those NGOs. In this video, we want to find out more about the connection between NGOs and biodiversity loss. Since we can't look into all of them, we reached out to a few selected NGOs and asked them to answer a few questions about their work and opinions in regards to the global mass extinction. In total, we will include 5 organizations. We differentiated between NGOs that act on a more local basis and those who focus on a more global scale. For an organization that acts more locally in Germany, we heard back from the Heinz-Dielmann-Stiftung. The 3 NGOs that replied to us that focus their efforts on a more global level are the International Fund for Animal Welfare, Wilderness International, and Biodiversity.vision. In addition, we decided to look into the LBV, a regional organization in Bavaria that started out with the protection of birds, but has since expanded their projects to include the protection of nature and the environment in general. Here, we used their website to find answers to our questions. To answer any questions left over, we also talked to an expert. Henning Werth found his interest in nature early on and went on to become a biologist. He used to be a member of the LBV, where he worked for several years. He took some time to sit down with us and, in addition to answering questions, pointed out some very interesting facts. Alright, let's get to the topic on hand. What do NGOs actually do to work against the loss of biodiversity? One of the biggest functions of NGOs is to make people aware of the current issues. They educate people and spread the word about the problems the environment faces. Change can only happen if people are aware of the problems. Another major part is the preservation of nature. This does not only include rainforests, biotopes can and should be created everywhere. The loss of natural habitat is one of the biggest causes for the loss of biodiversity, so protecting those habitats becomes more and more important. The preservation of natural habitats goes hand in hand with the protection of species. Monitoring the development of species allows NGOs to focus their efforts on protecting those species that are particularly endangered. To achieve their goals, NGOs also try to cooperate with other groups. This can include other NGOs working together in multilateral organizations like CITES, but also governmental institutions. Now we were curious. Had these organizations we were talking to already accomplished some of their goals? The Heinz Zielmann Stiftung explained to us their role in the conservation and development of rare and endangered habitats and species in Germany. Then they can measure their success on a local scale. Wilderness International also protected habitats, but they focused on the primary rainforest. Through their efforts and forming partnerships with over 50 companies, they are now permanently protecting more than 5 million square meters of primary rainforest. They also do a lot of environmental education, working with thousands of students all over Germany. The International Fund for Animal Welfare listed their part in the strict restrictions of hunting seals in Canada as one of their biggest accomplishments. They also mentioned their long-term political work in wildlife trade and the soon-to-be-expected trade bans for ivory. But when we have all of these efforts and successes, why is biodiversity still declining on a global level? The one reason all of the NGOs we asked listed was the need for more international cooperation and more consistent approaches. When every state or country acts differently, it is difficult to achieve big-scale goals. Especially when global problems like pollution, carbon emissions, the loss of habitat through things like intensive agriculture, and climate change in general are the main causes of biodiversity loss. A global cooperation is necessary to get far-reaching results. Our expert also agreed with these points and even gave us an example of the global connections when he told us about German dairy cows being fed with soy from South America. He also explained that there is a disconnect between what people know would be right and what they are actually willing to do. But what can NGOs do to increase their influence and with that their success? Again, the first thing to talk about is cooperating with other institutions. Schools play a vital role in educating the next generation about the importance of protecting nature. As Mr. Wert said, what you know and value, you will protect later on. Next are foundations and associations. Any cooperation between NGOs combining their efforts and resources to achieve a common goal has a higher chance of being successful. Working with businesses can also bring results, be it by finding cleaner means of production or expanding sustainable agriculture. Scientific institutions supply many of the numbers that NGOs rely on when deciding which measures to take. They can also help produce alternatives that benefit people and the environment. Lastly, working with the authorities, governments, and unions is obviously huge in increasing an NGO's influence. But next to cooperating with others, reaching out to people and creating awareness within the population is just as important. NGOs use ways like social media or the press, but also their own websites and regular newsletters to let people know about current issues and developments. They also often offer talks or excursions and many other ways to reach out and inform. All in all, one thing is certain. We all need to work together if we want to successfully work against the loss of biodiversity. So what do NGOs hope and maybe even expect to see in the future? In general, they hope that the awareness and consciousness for topics like biodiversity loss will increase and that the importance of it is more well known. In addition, they hope for people to keep an open mindset about the things that need to change in order to preserve nature and biodiversity. But maybe most importantly, the hope is that everyone starts taking action. This includes governments and companies, but also every individual person. Maybe you're now thinking, hey, great, I'm a person, what can I do? So here we compiled a list of a few things that you can change. First, join an NGO. A lot of big organizations have smaller groups that may be active in your area, but there are also tons of small local organizations that you can be active in. Go and support local projects like urban gardening, packaging-free supermarkets, or businesses with a transparent supply chain. Be vocal about current issues and sign petitions about the things that are important to you. Movements like Fridays for Future have created a big shift in mindset for a lot of people, and in Bavaria, the referendum Save the Bees resulted in changes in legislation. Be aware of how you buy. Try to pick more sustainable options when you go shopping. Be a critical consumer. Travel consciously. Choose more eco-friendly ways of traveling if you can. Be responsible in your handling of waste. Try to reduce your waste as much as possible and recycle the rest. So what now? We all need to work together to act against the loss of biodiversity. We have to stop talking and take action.